Level 1. Contract Ghost. Your Slack lights up at 2:17 a.m. Not with praise, not with a raise, not even with your name. Just a red tag message from a producer in Edinburgh. Why is the club crowd to posed in build 48291? Fix before 7 o'clock. You're not even on the club team. You're a temporary gameplay scripter in a rented one-bedroom outside Midtown Manhattan, eating cold Popeyes off a paper towel because your dining table is 2 moving boxes and an unopened monitor arm. Your badge doesn't open half the doors in the office. Your contract says 6 months. Everybody says, maybe 9 if you don't talk too much, don't complain, and don't break the nightly build. You alt-tab through 7 internal tools that look older than you feel. Crowd Manager, Animation State Debugger, Spawn Density Editor, Ticketing Dashboard, Crash Logs, Memory Capture, a private build notes doc with half the lines deleted by legal. At 3:14 a.m., you realize the bug isn't in the crowd. It's in a hidden script branch tied to a random event system no one documented, because the senior who built it left 18 months ago after a health break that everybody repeats in that flat corporate voice people use when somebody burns out so hard. They become a warning. The game is huge, too huge for any one person to understand. That's the first thing you learn. The second thing you learn is worse. The people who survive here aren't the best developers. They're the ones who can absorb blame without collapsing. By 6:41 a.m., you've patched the issue with a dirty conditional that would get you mocked in any clean studio. Here, it gets a thumbs up emoji from a lead you've never met and a new ticket assigned before sunrise. At 8:06, you walk into the office on no sleep. Glass walls, perfect branding, espresso machines humming like hospital equipment. You pass framed covers from games that defined entire childhoods. They're supposed to inspire you. Instead, they feel like gravestones. At your desk, you overhear 2 veterans talking about bonuses. One says he hasn't seen his kids awake on a weekday in 3 months. The other laughs like that's normal. You tell yourself this is temporary. You tell yourself if you survive long enough, you'll earn security, respect, maybe even your name in the right meeting. Then at 11:23 a.m., your lead drops a confidential task in your queue marked Do Not Discuss in Open Channels. You open it. It's a feature cut list. Not because the features are bad, because marketing already hinted at them in a trailer, and now production needs alternate truths ready in case they miss milestone. That's when the real question hits you. Not how to fix bugs, not how to get promoted. How do you survive in a place where the product is sacred, the schedule is fiction, and the truth changes depending on who's in the room? You don't ask. You learn. Fast. Level 2. Useful animal. 3 months later, your contract gets extended without ceremony. No meeting. No congratulations. Just an updated HR PDF at 9:02 p.m. and a producer message that says, "Need you on site Saturday." That's how promotions work here when you're low enough. More access. More secrets. Same chair. You stop trying to impress people with good code. Good code dies in meetings. Useful code survives. Ugly fixes, airtight excuses, fast turnaround. You become the person who can take a broken mission at 6:48 p.m. and make it pass certification checks by midnight. That makes you valuable, not respected. Valuable. There's a difference. You start noticing how power really moves. Not through org charts, through side conversations in hallways, calendar invites with vague titles, and facial expressions when certain names appear on a screen. Art blames design. Design blames engineering. Engineering blames legacy tech. Production blames scope drift, which is the polite term for everybody lying to each other 1 quarter at a time. Then the leak happens. Friday, 4:36 p.m. Someone posts internal footage online. Not just blurry clips, raw debug footage, watermarked, early build. Enough to trigger legal, PR, executive panic, and the kind of internal hunt that turns coworkers into informants by dinner. Security locks external ports, VPN permissions get reviewed. Entire teams lose repository access overnight. Your manager pulls you into a small room with no windows and asks where you were between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. on Wednesday. You answer. Then he asks who still has access to the old cinematic review server. You answer that too. Not because you know anything, because hesitation looks guilty. By Monday, one QA analyst is gone, a tools engineer has his accounts frozen, and every team lead is acting like they're one bad headline away from a stroke. You learn another rule. In a place built on secrecy, fear spreads faster than code. And fear is useful. You start documenting everything. Not for quality, for survival. Screenshots, approvals, timestamps, ticket histories, who said what. Who changed what? Who approved the thing they'll deny approving 2 weeks later? At 1:12 a.m. one night, a senior mission designer slides into the seat next to you and asks if you can quietly revert a change he pushed earlier because it tested bad with people who matter. That phrase sticks. People who matter. You do the revert, no ticket, no paper trail. The next morning, he gets praised in a review for decisive leadership. That's when a part of you dies. A useful part. The part that thought this place runs on fairness. Now you understand the food chain. The bottom gets work, the middle gets protection, the top gets liability. You decide you're done being meat. Level 3, firefighter with clearance. At 27, you get your first real title, Associate Technical Designer. It sounds respectable enough to tell your family. What it means is you now own disasters other people started. You're put on one of the city districts everybody on the outside fantasizes about. Neon corridors, dense traffic logic, dynamic robberies, reactive police escalation. The kind of system players will call alive without realizing it takes 200 people in 3 years just to make one street corner fail in a believable way. Your phone never stops vibrating. At 7:05 a.m., AI pathing deadlocks under freeway ramps. At 11:40 a.m., a mission soft locks if the player steals an ambulance before entering the trigger volume. At 2:22 p.m., legal flags a storefront parody because it looks too close to a real Miami chain. At 9:17 p.m., performance tanks 14 frames when rain hits a nightclub district during a police chase. You stop seeing the game as entertainment. You see it as an unstable crime scene. Then crunch arrives, without anyone saying the word. Nobody says crunch anymore. Too risky, too ugly, too easy to quote. Now it's critical delivery window. You're in the office 6 days a week. The catered dinners get better right when morale gets worse. Sushi on Tuesdays, barbecue on Thursdays, green juice in the fridge, corporate narcotics. They feed you like racehorses because they need you running until your legs go. One night at 12:51 a.m., you catch a producer editing milestone notes after a review to make a missed target look like a strategic deferral. Small wording changes, tiny lies, enough to protect one director and bury 2 teams. You say nothing, but now you know, and knowing things changes your posture. You stop apologizing so much, stop volunteering uncertainty, start speaking in the language that rises here. Controlled confidence, handled, mitigated, tracking, resolved in next branch. You become calm during catastrophe, which makes nervous people trust you. That's how you get invited into the first room that matters. A Thursday review. 8:30 p.m., half the floor empty. Glass conference room overlooking the city. On-screen build running from a dev kit. 3 directors, 2 producers, 1 silent man from finance. They don't ask if the feature is good. They ask if it can ship without becoming a lawsuit, a scandal, or a delay. That's your first glimpse of the real product. Not the game, the launch. And launches don't reward artists. They reward operators. You leave that room at 10:06 p.m. with expanded permissions, a private channel invite, and a warning from your lead. If they start trusting you, be careful. Trusted people get handed the bodies. A week later, they hand you one. A senior designer melts down in a review, calls the roadmap fiction, accuses production of burying technical debt, and storms out before midnight. By morning, his tasks are redistributed to you. No announcement, no explanation, just more power and less sleep. Level 4, white collar cleaner. Your salary jumps to $142,000. You should feel rich. You move into a better apartment in Brooklyn with floor-to-ceiling windows you're too busy to enjoy. You buy a proper espresso machine, a Herman Miller chair, 2 black jackets that make you look like someone who has control over his life. You don't. You now manage a strike team. 6 developers, 4 time zones, 1 mandate, fix anything that threatens public perception. Not reality, perception. A mission can be hollow. A mechanic can be repetitive, but if a clip of it leaks looking broken, it becomes a priority over systems that actually matter. That's when the white-collar corruption becomes impossible to ignore. Nobody is stealing cash out of safes. They're stealing time, credit, and truth. At 9:48 a.m. every Monday, there's a review where bad news gets repackaged into alignment. Features aren't cut, they're resequenced. Failures aren't admitted, they're discoveries. Delays aren't delays, they're quality protection. Everybody lies in polished language. You get good at it. Scary good. A junior asks if a feature is still planned. You know it's dead. You tell him it's under active evaluation. He smiles like you gave him hope. You go back to your desk and mark the files for archive. Then comes the raid. Not federal. Worse. Corporate. Internal compliance sweeps the floor after an expense scandal in another division. Suddenly, badges are audited, receipts reviewed, procurement chains frozen, contractors disappear by noon, shared drives locked down, producers start forwarding emails to personal folders like cornered accountants. You get pulled into a conference room with HR and legal over an outsourced asset approval chain. Someone authorized external work using internal reference material that should never have left the secure environment. Your name is in the thread, not as the decision maker, as the one who acknowledged feasibility. One sentence, 12 words, sent at 1 a.m. 6 months ago. That's enough. For 43 minutes, they ask if you understood the security implications, whether anyone pressured you, whether there are other instances. You realize then how this machine works when it needs sacrifice. It doesn't go after the most guilty. It goes after whoever is nearest, documented, and replaceable. So you do what people at this level do. You give them a cleaner target. You mention a producer who bypassed review. You mention an art manager who requested the material through back channels. You stay factual, cold, helpful. By Friday, both are gone. You keep your job. You also stop hearing your own internal objections. That voice is getting quieter now. You tell yourself they would have done the same. You're right. That doesn't help. Level 5. Director and everything but name. You don't receive authority all at once. It accumulates. A budget approval here, a private roadmap there, a seat in launch risk meetings, a text from an executive at 6:03 a.m. asking for a readout before the Europe call. The more they trust you, the less human your calendar becomes. You clear $18,400 a month after taxes and still eat dinner standing up. You know which features are real, which ones exist only for investor confidence, and which ones are kept alive because one important person likes hearing them discussed. You also know where the bodies are buried. A polished gameplay slice shown internally, held together with scripted triggers and disabled fail states. A spontaneous city event praised by leadership, pre-baked. A famous feature the internet assumes is revolutionary, still breaking under-edge cases so badly that half your team calls it by a funeral nickname. You become the bridge between dream and fraud. That's the corruption at this level. Not embezzlement, narrative management. You lead meetings where exhausted specialists present miracles and get told they need to look accidental. You tell engineers to hide seams instead of fixing foundations, because there is no time left to fix foundations. You sign off on cuts and then help write language that makes those cuts sound like vision. You are good at this. Too good. Then someone high up gets scared. A competing publisher announces a date window. Stock chatter starts. Internal pressure doubles. Launch planning mutates into war room logic. Security protocols tighten again. Review builds become need to know. Entire departments work on fragmented slices so nobody below a certain level sees the full state of the game. Paranoia becomes policy. One night at 11:58 p.m., your direct report messages you. I think they're setting us up. He's not wrong. A stability review is being prepared for executives, and production wants your team's known risk list shortened before presentation. Not fixed, shortened, reclassified, deferred, moved into categories that won't trigger panic. Your report wants to push back. You know what happens to people who push back publicly. They become not aligned, their influence evaporates, their access shrinks, their career flatlines while everyone around them learns the lesson. So you call him at 12:11 a.m. and tell him to rewrite the deck. He asks if that's honest. You stare at your reflection in a black monitor and answer the way this place has trained you to answer. It's survivable. He goes quiet. 2 weeks later, he resigns. A month later, you take his responsibilities too. That should feel like winning. It doesn't. You've moved from fixing chaos to administering it. Level 6, Keeper of the Illusion. Now you're in the closed meetings. No phones, no notes leave the room. Security outside the door. Build reviews with executives who speak in calm voices and make decisions that erase 2 years of labor in under 3 minutes. You wear tailored clothes. Sleep with magnesium gummies on your nightstand. Have a cardiologist now. You're 33. The game is close enough to smell blood. This is the phase where everyone becomes dangerous. Marketing wants certainty. Engineering wants time. Executives want numbers. Legal wants plausible deniability. And every promise made over the last 4 years comes due at once. You are one of the people standing in the center trying to keep all of it from collapsing. At 8:44 p.m. on a Tuesday, a core progression system fails in a full session review. Save corruption. Rare, but not rare enough. The room goes still. Nobody shouts. Nobody needs to. Quiet is worse at this level. Quiet means cost calculations are happening. delay and trigger a financial shockwave, or contain the issue, reduce exposure, and pray the edge case stays buried under launch traffic. You choose contain. Not alone. Never alone. That's another lesson. The biggest sins in corporations are committee sins, shared guilt, distributed fingerprints. Impossible to prosecute emotionally because nobody can point to the exact second the moral line was crossed. You sign off on a narrowed test case. Reduced save state permutations. Limited QA coverage on branches unlikely to affect review code. The issue becomes known but low incidence. You know that phrase is a lie. You approve it anyway. The game moves forward. And so do you. By now your old life is gone. Friends stopped inviting you to things because you always canceled. Your mother leaves voicemails asking if you're healthy. You listen at 1.5x speed between meetings. You dated someone in production for 5 months, then ended it by text after she asked why you look terrified every time your phone buzzes. Because your phone means consequences. Because every vibration might be a leak, a crash, a legal threat, an executive demand, a team mutiny, or proof that the thing everyone has sacrificed themselves to build is still one bad week away from public humiliation. You walk through the office at 1:30 a.m. and see rows of monitors glowing over empty desks. For a second, the place looks abandoned. Then you notice the sleeping bag under one workstation. Someone didn't go home. You don't ask who. You just keep walking. Level 7, the public ghost. Your title is finally big enough to impress strangers. Senior Development Director. Online, people argue about whether someone like you is a genius, a fraud, or both. They never see your face. That's intentional. At this level, your work is no longer code. It's containment. You manage information leaks, morale collapses, political feuds, vendor failures, and executive expectations. You attend meetings where one sentence can erase a studio's quarter. You approve staffing changes with the emotional temperature of a surgeon disposing of tissue. Then launch approaches and the death spiral starts. Review embargo plans, day one patch logistics, server simulation failures, certification near misses, translation errors, late stage mission blockers, influencer capture prep, merchandise sync, retail legal panic over one piece of box copy. Everybody wants your answer first. Everybody wants someone else blamed second. At 3:03 a.m., you get a call that an external partner accidentally received a package containing old footage with disabled content still visible in debug overlays. If that leaks, headlines shift from hype to scandal overnight. You patch the breach by sunrise. NDAs, courier retrieval, legal pressure, one panicked conference call with Los Angeles, and another with London. No one thanks you. That's how you know you're important now. Thanks are for people still considered people. Then comes the assassination attempt. Not with bullets. An executive you've protected for 2 years forwards a meeting recap that subtly frames recent schedule compression as your recommendation, not his demand. A perfect corporate kill shot. Clean. Documented. Future-proof. If launch stumbles, the paper trail points downward. You stare at the email for 9 seconds. Then you forward a chain he forgot existed. Time-stamped approvals. Budget constraints, direct pressure notes, his own wording. He calls you 2 minutes later, voice calm, almost friendly. Let's make sure there's no confusion. That's when you understand the final rule. At the top, nobody wins by being right. They win by being impossible to bury. You survive the attack. But now you stop sleeping properly. Not little sleep, bad sleep. The kind where your body jerks awake because some primitive part of your brain thinks it heard an alert tone. You install blackout curtains, then cameras, then a second phone only 5 people have. You begin checking who is CC'd before you read what's written. You start hearing strategy in compliments. You are no longer ambitious. You are fortified. Level 8, the myth in the locked office. There is no promotion announcement. One day, people start standing when you enter certain rooms. That's how you know. You now sit near the center of the machine. One of the names spoken carefully. One of the final signatures before decisions harden into reality. The office around you is cleaner, quieter, more secure. Frosted glass, private assistant, calendar blocks labeled only with initials. People below, imagine this level feels like power. It feels like siege. You have money now, real money, equity. Bonuses tied to metrics you privately despise. A penthouse you visit like a hotel. A car service account. A doctor who tells you to reduce stress and says it with a straight face. You are treated as untouchable, which means you cannot show weakness anywhere. Not in meetings, not in email, not in your walk. Not in the 2 minutes before a build review starts and everyone is pretending not to watch your expression. The game ships closer and louder than anything you've ever touched. The world calls it historic before the full patch notes are even live. Sales records crack, servers stagger, clips flood every platform. Some are brilliant, some are broken. All of them are yours now. The praise feels thin. The blame feels personal. Inside the company, everybody celebrates for 48 hours, then immediately begins the next war. Patches, roadmaps, online economy tuning, post-launch optics, shareholder framing, recruitment spin, retention panic. There is no summit, only a slightly higher trench, and your isolation becomes complete. Old coworkers don't joke with you anymore. They brief you. Friends from outside the industry stop trying to understand years ago. Family speaks to you like you're successful and absent in equal measure. You sit in your apartment at 1:11 a.m., looking at a city that doesn't care you exist, and for the first time in a long time, there is no immediate emergency. That should feel peaceful. Instead, it feels like the moment after a gunshot when you're waiting to find out if it hit you. Because at this level, the ending is already visible. You've seen enough bosses before you. The divorce, the blood pressure medication, the internal investigation, the sudden resignation for personal reasons, the transfer to some advisory role with no real power, the industry article praising their legacy while carefully avoiding the wreckage. The boss rank is not freedom. It is a golden cage with biometric access. You gave this place your sleep, your honesty, your relationships, your appetite, your nerves, your 20s, and most of your 30s. In return, it gave you influence so heavy it feels like debt. Then one morning, 6:32 a.m., before the sun fully clears the buildings, you arrive early and see someone new at reception. Cheap backpack, fresh badge, eyes bright, a contractor. Young enough to still believe talent is the same thing as safety, reception is printing temporary access because his permissions haven't propagated yet. He apologizes too much. Thanks everyone. Talks fast. Says he's honored to be here. Says this is his dream. You watch him smile at the posters on the wall like they mean immortality. Then your phone vibrates. A producer in another time zone. Red tag message. Build issue. Immediate response needed. The new kid straightens up, ready to prove himself. And without thinking, already moving, already numb, already part of the machine that made you, you tell him the first rule. Don't ask questions. Just fix it.